All right, it is August 26th, 3:31 p.m., and I am calling to order the Diversion Board of Authority. Don, could I get a roll call, please?
Mayor Carlson.
Here.
Dr. Mahoney.
Here.
Mayor Dardis.
Here.
Mr. Peterson. Mr. Hendrickson.
Here.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Here.
Mr. Emminger.
Here.
Mr. Strand.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mrs. Sherling.
I'm here.
Mr. Steen.
Here.
Mr. Olson.
Here.
Mr. Seljewald. That is everyone. Quorum is present.
Okay, thank you very much, Don. And moving on to the approval of the minutes from July 22nd, 2021. This is a voice call vote. I have a motion to approve the minutes.
So move. Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to number 3, the approval of minutes from the August 9th, 2021 special meeting. This is also a voice call vote. Do I have a motion? Meeting minutes?
So moved. Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. On to number 4, the approval of the order of the agenda. This would be a roll call vote. Or no, this is also a voice call vote for the order of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
So move. Steen, second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to the consent agenda. This will be a roll call vote. Do I have a motion to approve the following finance report, voucher approval, DA board approval, MOU and agreement actions?
Strand moves.
Olson, seconds.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, I have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Carlson.
Yeah, sorry, Don, just a moment. Do you want to do them individually?
Madam Chair, we just wanted to note there was a Finance Committee meeting yesterday in which one of the bills was pulled out and adjusted differently. And if you're under the consent agenda, I believe you're approving all of the bills. And so just, it's totally up to the board if you want to approve all the bills, but there was a little, the resolution that came forward from the Finance Committee pulled one of the bills out. And if you approve the consent agenda as it is, then you're approving all of the bills as presented without that change.
Okay, so let's go back. Can I get maybe an amended motion and second? Would I have to? I would have to pull out the finance report to do a separate motion for that one, without approving the.
I believe that it would only be the one bill that was pulled out by the Finance Committee yesterday, and that was the reimbursement for the city of Fargo. And so I suppose you could just take that one out of consent and put that under the Finance Committee report, and then you could just approve all the other bills under consent. Sorry, we were sitting back here and we caught it that there was a disconnect between what the consent agenda had on it and then what the Finance Committee recommended.
Chair,
Yes, Mayor Mahoney.
just to be clear, John, it wasn't the whole 6 million. It was a small portion of that 6 million. So just so the team understands that there's a discussion about a certain part of the bill that we'd like to go further in discussion with Joe Paulson. So it would only be that portion. So the majority of the 6 million would be paid.
Yeah, that's my understanding of the decision or recommendation by the Finance Committee meeting. I don't know how you want to handle it as a board, but we wanted to flag that up as an issue.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Steen.
perhaps the individual making the motion would withdraw the first motion and the second would be withdrawn.
Do you want to withdraw your motion?
I think.
What I was going to suggest, Madam Chair, is to modify the motion to approve the bills except for the one that would be reported in the finance report.
Okay. I think, is that an acceptable motion?
Yeah, you could do a motion to amend the second, vote on your amendment, and then vote on the underlying motion. So it'd be 2 votes.
Okay, who was that? Did you make that motion?
Is that a motion to amend?
I made the motion.
Oh, the
Somebody
first
seconded.
motion.
Oh.
There's a motion on the table, so we have to withdraw that motion.
Right.
So,
Madam Chair, can we start all over again? Because now it's like.
Yes, today is August 26, 2021. I'm calling the diversion board.
A motion.
Okay, so Commissioner Strand, you made the first motion.
And if the chair's preference is to withdraw the motion and start fresh, I withdraw my motion.
Thank you. And then Steen, you seconded that.
somebody did.
Yeah. So we will withdraw that motion. Thank you very much. Do I have, and Commissioner Strand, are you making the new motion then?
As I understand it, Madam Chair, the new motion would be to approve the bills except for the item that will be reported specifically in finance report.
That is correct.
A, B, and C.
Not really.
And Olson will second.
Good, now confuse it.
Any discussion, Commissioner Steen?
Madam Chair.
This is,
So are we are pulling the approval of the bills out of the consent agenda, as I understand it. We'd vote on the consent agenda and pull the approval of the bills out, because the motion currently is just to approve the payment of the bills. There's a lot more under the consent agenda, which was the item on the agenda. So we have to pull the bills out from the consent agenda, approve the consent agenda, go back and address the bills, and then we would approve the bills as.
It might help if we use the term the administrative fee. That is how it's listed in the bills that were in question at the Finance Committee meeting. That's just a reference point.
We'll get through this, I know we will.
okay. This is really fun right now. Okay, Commissioner Strand, you've made a motion to approve the consent agenda, which would be A, B, and C, with the exception of the Fargo bill
Administrative fee.
absent the administrative fee, which would be discussed under the finance update.
That is my intention, Madam Chair.
Second.
There we go.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, could I get a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Carlson,
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney,
Aye.
Mayor Dardis,
Yes?
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson,
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mr. Ebinger,
Aye.
Mr. Strand,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Shirley,
Yes.
Mr. Steen,
Yes.
Mr. Olson.
Yes.
That is everyone.
Thank you. The consent agenda passes with the verbiage that we stated. Moving on to number 5, Executive Director report. Joel, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate that, members of the board. Few topics. I think the first one I just wanted to highlight, our General Spellman visit on August 12th. We took a tour bus out to the construction sites. Really was very comprehensive. We went and looked at the Red River Control Site where the excavation is taking place for the I-29 grade raise. And then we made our way over to the inlet and control structure and then to the wild rice control structure. And most of these photos, the top photos there are from, or the larger photos are from the inlet site, and the middle and the bottom photo is from the wild rice control site. So if you weren't able to attend, it's really quite amazing the amount of work that's been taking place out there. I think Terry will update us here in a moment, but I believe both structures are about 60% complete and ahead of schedule right now. Site was very clean and great interaction between General Spellman, Senator Hoven, and Representative Michelle Fischbach from Minnesota as well. I think they all appreciated the opportunity to have discussions with the General. Incidentally, one of the discussions I had with him is he said he was so glad to be able to come to a project where everything's moving forward on schedule and under budget. He doesn't normally get an opportunity to do that. So he said this is a great day for him to have been there and seen boots on the ground, seen the great work that's been going on around Fargo here. So. A number of other activities. It's been a really busy month this month. Some of the key public-private partnership updates here for you. We did complete commercial close last Thursday. That was basically our signing of the agreement with the Red River Valley Alliance. So it was a big day. We issued a limited notice to proceed so they can proceed with a limited number of activities such as survey and some mobilization, some things of those nature. We do expect financial close to be scheduled sometime in mid-October, and that is when the Red River Valley Alliance will complete all their closing on their financial plan. Second item here, we've been really interacting with them lately. I've been having weekly meetings on all sorts of different topics to coordinate and integrate with each other. I got to meet the program manager for the Red River Valley Alliance last week. They arrived here in Fargo looking for office space, and we're going to see more and more of their folks coming into town here. And then I also just wanted to make a note, because I have talked to the board about this potential industry day with the Red River Valley Alliance. It's not something the DA is going to be coordinating, but that is something that the Red River Valley Alliance is interested in, and they have already been in discussions with Shannon Full at the Chamber, as well as a number of other folks in the community. So it's been very encouraging to see how quickly they are trying to integrate into the community and get moving forward. Number of planning items here. The FMDA team has really kind of taken a look at what a organizational chart would look like for our public staff. And so I hope to bring that to the board next month. I want to circulate our proposed draft through some of the leadership meetings, the TAG group, as well as the co-executive directors, and gather comment. And then I'll be bringing that, presenting that at the September board meeting. And that's really going to be what my recommendation would be to the board for our team and our needs throughout the duration of construction. So I just wanted to kind of preview that, and we've been working on that over the past month here. And then a number of board members and myself and Mr. Shockley will be attending some meetings in Washington, D.C. at the end of September. We'd like to meet with OMB, I think is the principal target. We want to clarify where we're at and where we're going. And ultimately, our goal is to get certainty in the federal funding for the remaining portions of the Corps' work. That's kind of one of our last remaining risks for schedule slippage. If in any 1 year we do not get appropriated the amount to keep the Corps on schedule, that slips back our 2027, 2028 completion date. So it's a very critical component of the overall schedule, and OMB is certainly the folks that we need to be talking about to get that federal financial certainty, whether it be the President's budget, the infrastructure bill, or the Corps' work plans, and how that all kind of interacts. So we are doing a lot of planning for that to make sure that we're on the top of our game when we're there, and we make a big impact and get what we're looking for. Additionally, a lot of ongoing coordination still occurring with utilities, township MOUs. I just want to give a special thanks again to Mr. Bachigard for all the work he's been doing on this. I did get word last night that he also obtained the Pleasant Township MOU and the first reading of the change in the variance in the floodplain ordinance for Pleasant Township. And so wonderful work being done there. And you'll see on the board agenda today, we have Normanna and Stanley Township, two very critical, especially Stanley, very critical township to be working and coordinating with. So, and then I've been working with somewhat with the EDC with this idea of the economic impact of our project and what the economic impact of removing flood insurance in the floodplain is going to be after our project. And so I did receive a proposal from NDSU. It's not ready to bring to the board, but I wanted to make you aware and obviously get any feedback from the board, if you do have some tonight, about the phase one economic impact of building this project and what that means for our community. It's certainly something I feel that falls squarely within the Diversion Authority's purview and what we're interested in and how this project interacts with our community. So that, and I think NDSU is uniquely positioned to do this study. The EDC uses NDSU for almost all their economic impact studies for different things that they're working on within the community. So they have a wealth of local information about our community and the economics of our community. So I just wanted to get that on your radar screen. And then the last was this New Star pipeline and the potential cost increase that we're facing. I just want to also, talk about some of the good things that our team does that doesn't always go recognized. There was an issue with the relocation of this oil pipeline under the proposed channel, and it could have resulted in a $500,000 overrun due to the boring and what was happening with hitting the glacial till versus staying in the clays. And the tech team, the TAG team, and Chris Bachigard all kind of got together and were able to figure out ways to prevent that from occurring and reduce the potential overage and bring it back into budget. So just kind of wanted to give a little nod of thanks again to our technical folks that are working on this project. Every day things like this come up, and they're working diligently to continue to find cost-saving ways to move this project forward. So, then I guess I'll take any questions on just the happenings this month, but I do have a little bit more, Madam Chair.
Well, let's see if there are any questions about kind of happenings this month. Or any questions or comments?
Excellent. Well, I'll move on then. I'd like to bring Mr. Bachigard up, and I wanted to show this video. For those of you that maybe weren't able to come on the tour, this is a pretty comprehensive video that we put together of the construction that's occurring today. And I just thought this was maybe a good time at this board meeting to take a few minutes to watch this video, and we'll have Mr. Bachigard narrate.
Thanks, Joel. Yeah, this was a video we put together for the general's visit, so it gives a nice overview of all the different, most of the projects we have ongoing, especially on the core program side. So we're starting at the Wild Rice River site. It gives you a good view of what's going on there. The work going on in the foreground there, they're putting in what's called wick drains. Those help with the pre-consolidation of the soil, help that move faster. So they push those pieces of plastic all the way down to the glacial till. That helps bring the moisture up to the surface to help the deep consolidation that happens in our Red River Valley clays. Here's a view coming over the river kind of towards the structure. So this would be where the embankment will ultimately be. So now we're coming in more to the easterly or towards the west, but on the easterly side of the structure. But they're making nice progress. They're working on the abutment walls now, which is what you see here. And then they'll move from there to build the interior, what they call their pier or their interior wall of the structure. The piece you see blocked out there is where the gates will rotate. And speaking of the gates, they're being manufactured in Georgia right now for both of the structures. Sounds like the Corps and Ames will be making a visit to those sites sometime here in the next month or so. So anticipating those would likely get delivered to the site sometime this fall or winter. And then they'll come in pieces, and there'll be a group coming in to assemble those on site. Word is the gates on the Red River structure are 200 and some thousand pounds each. So they're weighty structures. Here they're just setting forms for a future pour of the abutment wall. So they do that in segments. I think they did the abutment walls in like 3 different pours. So they build the wall up, pour a piece of it, and then add the steel on and build it up some more. So this is the top segment of the abutment walls. So those will probably be done here in the next month or so. So here's the Interstate grade raise project. So the path you see through the fields, that's actually the alignment of the embankment in the future. Here we're just bouncing around a little bit, but here they're working on the actual that they're taking borrow out of an area to build the project, but they're up to putting gravel on the bypass now. We'll start paving here in the next few weeks with the intention of having that bypass open this winter. They've also started doing some demo on the existing interstate lanes in anticipation of putting a earth fill on there to pre-consolidate the soil over the winter on the interstate as well. Like I said, they're using the existing embankment alignment as a haul road. So they're hauling material from the Red River site over to the interstate. So making use of lands we will ultimately need anyway. Here they're driving on the bypass lanes next to the interstate, so you can see that taking shape. This goes on for about 7 minutes. If you guys want to keep going, I can keep going. If you guys want to move on, I'm fine moving on. So it's a nice view of giving both kind of the overviews and some as it's being constructed views. So that video is available. You guys, if you need it, we can share it with you. It's on the website. So anyway, there, like I said, it covers all the sites. There's one for the wetland project, which is reaching substantial completion here next week as well. So projects are moving along at a nice pace. So,
just a quick question.
Yep. Commissioner Olson.
What moves that 200,000 pound gate? Is it hydraulic or?
No, it'll be a mechanical winch type system. So it'll be mechanical motors that sit on top that run a winch system that's geared, and it'll be on cables. So.
All right.
Actually, I was thinking that Mayor Mahoney was going to be there just with a crank.
Yep.
Pulling it up, putting it down.
It'll come along on a stick.
We asked if that was an emergency allowance, and they assured us that there isn't a person alive that could turn those cranks. So
someone doesn't know Mayor Mahoney.
Yeah, and that might be true. That's very, very true.
I got you, Mayor.
I heard he's been working out. So.
All right, perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Backegard. Mr. Paulson, do you have further information?
That's all I have, Madam Chair, unless there's any questions from the board. So.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Paulson. Moving on to General Counsel update, and I will turn it over to Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Diversion Authority Board. The first item that I have for you today is the resolution establishing the Alternative Dispute Resolution Board that was tabled at last month's meeting. A couple of changes and clarifications have been made to that resolution. Primarily, the upstream MNDAC Upstream Coalition has been removed as a potential party offering a hearing officer. I also have summarized the clarifications regarding when the Alternative Dispute Resolution Board comes into existence, what its jurisdiction is, and what its authority is. And so just for a brief overview, the Alternative Dispute Resolution Board does not start any activities. It doesn't meet as a board until after the project is complete and operates. And so it has no jurisdiction over valuation issues for flowage easements, no relationship to our current acquisition schedule or to mitigation. Rather, it would only meet and hear claims after the project operates. And project operation is defined as when the executive director commences operations of the project, which has a meaning throughout the entire documents for the project, including the P3 documents, and that's somebody physically goes out there and starts the operation of the gate. That's when the project starts operations. The intent of the board is that it would hear claims from property owners who aren't covered by flowage easements, who aren't covered by current programs, and property damage or personal injury or personal damage caused by project operations. So for example, and the example that I utilized in my memo was we have a flowage easement that covers 80 acres of a quarter section, and the farmer says that the project operated and it caused additional flooding on my other 80 acres. They could bring that claim to the Alternative Dispute Resolution Board. During times in which the project isn't in operation, they don't hear claims. That doesn't mean the person doesn't have a claim. What that means is that it would just be covered by insurance. So somebody trips and falls while they're in the diversion channel, somebody has a traffic accident, those normal types of claims are covered as with any city or county or any other jurisdiction. You have insurance coverage that applies to those claims. This is just related to project operation and property damage. And the concept is that the diversion authority would try to work with the person. If they can't come to a resolution, this is a dispute option, which doesn't require them to go to court. They could jump this step and go immediately to court, but our hope and the regulatory agency's hope was that for those claims that can't be resolved, this might be a cheaper way than going to court for the parties. I can answer any questions that you might have, but I thought the short memo provided kind of a good brief overview.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Questions? Commissioner Strand.
Thank you. And I wasn't participating in the last Diversion Authority meeting. I was somewhat surprised to learn subsequently that there was such a debate about having a seat on the dispute resolution board for somebody representing upstream. Am I hearing it clearly that that has been removed?
That was the direction that I had received, Commissioner Strand.
And who, help me understand, who directed that?
After it was tabled, there was a lot of discussion about having that. So it's not that they have a seat, they can appoint a hearing officer, and that hearing officer is part of the rotation. The direction that I received along with the executive director at last meeting was there was a lot of concern about that position being appointed. We then had a small group meeting with the leadership, and it was directed that we take that out of the provision and bring it back to the board. I mean, if as a board you want to add it back in, I can add it back in. I'd leave that to the board members to decide.
If I might, Madam Chair, I'd be concerned that there's concern about having that seat there. After all what we went through to address this and move forward and to try have a fairness, I just don't see the problem of, first of all, recognizing the recommendations that came from our people who created this, and second, allowing that seat to be there. I just can't fathom that, frankly.
Madam Chair.
Mayor Mahoney.
Mr. Strand, I think it was more a problem with that the members, if you look at the members, they were all county members, and there's a methodology of the county to appoint people to that. Upstream Coalition really had nothing, our original plans to do it did not have them in there, and it was just at the thought that maybe they should be in there, but the purity of the board was basically it's counties. Counties have a methodology with elected officials to appoint somebody. Upstream Coalition does not have elected officials. So it was felt in fairness, let's keep it to what initially was expected to be, which was county board members. And John originally put that strategy before us, and it was that the commission or the board had difficulty when clearly, if you look at the list, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but there's about 20 members. How many county members, John?
I think about 11.
11 county members, and there's a very clear route how those people are appointed. The Upstream Coalition really doesn't fit in that type of structure. It's just an add-on. And really, this is dispute resolution for under $50,000. It's done in a methodology. If the upstream people want to help out a farmer that has a problem or a dispute, they can. They're welcome to do that. But the way this is appointed and how it's appointed to people that are not in that area, and it has to be outside counties involved. And it's just a more purity of the board if you just have it to county board members.
And just for correction, it's 12 counties. I'm sorry, Ms. Falk. I said 11, it's 12. And then the North Dakota State Office of Engineering, Minnesota DNR had declined because they felt it would conflict with their regulatory requirements.
Commissioner Campbell.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Strand, I think it's important to know that Richland County and Wilkin County will have representation. They will have representation just like Cass County and Clay County will. It's just that no outside entity is going to be allowed to appoint somebody to that board. So there will be representation. And the way it works is it depends on where the claim is. And that's going to determine which members of the pool are selected. Am I correct, John?
Yeah, there's one member that is selected from the area in which the claim occurs, and then the other two are selected alphabetically from the pool. And so you could, in theory, if there was a claim in Wilkin County, you might have one Wilkin County representative and one from Pembina County and one from Cass County or something like that.
Okay, any further questions? All right, this requires a roll call vote. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
Move to approve.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, could I get a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Carlson,
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney,
Aye.
Mayor Dardis,
Aye.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson,
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mr. Eppinger,
Aye.
Mr. Strand,
No.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling,
Yes.
Mr. Steen,
Yes.
Mr. Olson.
Yes.
That is everyone.
Thank you. The resolution passes. Mr. Shockley, number B, or letter B.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next item I have is another housekeeping resolution. The Metro Flood Diversion Authority entered into a MOU with Cass County, and upon certain actions, sometimes we need the county to acquire rights-of-way that are currently township roads or other rights-of-way. And this is part of the plating process. And strategically and long-term for the project, the intent is all right-of-way for the project, whether it's Southern Embankment or Diversion Channel area, will become platted area, which will result in the vacation of the road. There's several reasons to do that. It's more consistent for county GIS, county recording purposes, for long-term, for real estate purposes. It's nice to have the property platted. It also it also is an opportunity to identify all of the easements that go under or are connected with the platted area. Just like a city goes ahead and plats property, you'll see on the plat, there'll be all sorts of different recorded easements that go through the area. And so that's been our long-term strategy. And platting of the right-of-way has already commenced in different areas where we have all the property in fee simple. And so this resolution, pursuant to that MOU with Cass County, requests that Cass County take over that right-of-way, and that's identified in I think it's page, Exhibit A of the attachment shows the right-of-way that would be acquired. And it's all related to the Red River control structure, which you just heard about, the earth starting to move around the Red River control structure. So it's a housekeeping item, but it is an important part of the nuts and bolts of the project.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion. Commissioner Campbell.
Question, the Red River control structure, is that going to have any similar needs on the Minnesota side?
I'm going to go off my technical memory, and I might need Chris to jump in, but I believe the Red River control structure is going to be entirely on the North Dakota side. But there will be in the future, as we acquire right-of-way on the Minnesota side, our intent is also to plat property on the Minnesota side. And so there may be similar requests to the county commission, but that's going to really vary upon the area and if we need to vacate any roads there.
Thank you.
Any further discussion or questions? Right, hearing none, I have a motion and a second, and this requires a roll call vote. So could I get a roll call, please, Don?
Mayor Carlson,
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney,
Aye.
Mayor Dardis,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson,
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mr. Eppinger,
Aye.
Mr. Strand,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling,
Yes.
Mr. Steen,
Yes.
Mr. Olson.
Yes.
That is everyone.
Resolution passes. And back to you, Mr. Shockley, to review next steps for the financial close with the P3 developer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as Joel had indicated, we did reach commercial close last week, which is a big monumental step for the project. Financial close will signify the agreement is finalized. The financial close deadline under the P3 agreement, so I'll start with the bookends. The financial close is due by November 15th, so that means that the developer has until November 15th to fully close. What is involved in the financial close, once you have all of the signed commercial documents, they go to their banks, and not only that, they go to underwriters and private placement agencies and pull together all of their financing for the project. And so currently they're out raising about $1.25 billion. And so they bring all that money in, and that's a combination of both short-term and long-term debt. And they have to have that in place before we reach financial close. And under the way the P3 is set up, they have to expend those sums and have significant sums of money into the ground, so to speak, before we start paying milestone payments. And so it gives the other side an incentive to get the work done because they actually hold all the risk for the construction financing as opposed to a typical public project where the public entity is making draw requests and the contractor is just responsible for doing the work and gets progress payments. So the first step in that process to reach financial close is commercial close. Over the next couple of weeks, the developer, working with the authority because we review all of their financing documents, will be submitting significant amounts of financial documents, agreements for our review and finalization. And also we have to coordinate with our trustee, Bank of North Dakota, and the fiscal agent, who's the city of Fargo. So there'll be a lot of behind the scenes activities reviewing documents. We're currently in the process of working with Cass County to hold what's called a TEFRA hearing. Been in contact with Cass County administrator. We're tentatively planning that for the 20th. It doesn't mean Cass County is obligated to any debt. It's just when you issue tax exempt PABs, you need the jurisdiction that has authority over the entire project area, which is the channel. Cass County, they have to hold a public hearing whether or not the debt should be issued. It's just an IRS compliance requirement. Then the PABs would go ahead and be issued. They're also issuing other long-term bonds that are taxable, and they're working with their banks to secure the other portion of the private financing. During this time period, you may ask, well, what happens if they don't close? What happens if we don't reach financial close? The developer obviously has an incentive to reach financial close in that they've signed the agreement, they've been selected. But also we have what's called the financial closing security. So prior to commercial close, the developer was required to submit to the Diversion Authority $20 million of letter of credit, and that allows us to draw the $20 million immediately if they aren't able to achieve financial close. The reason that we chose $20 million was we wanted a significant protection for the authority if they didn't reach financial close, and also to compensate us for the costs that we incurred during procurement. You could still go to the other proposer if you didn't reach financial close. We don't expect any of this to happen, but want to make sure that the authority understands that we're well protected in reaching financial close. And we have weekly meetings with the financial team for the developer. Happy to answer any questions. There's some complexity in the financing, but there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Any questions? All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Move to approve.
We're not going to do the consent agenda issue again, are we? Thank you. All right, moving on to number 7, project update from U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I'll turn it over to you, Terry.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. I'm pleased to report out on the Corps of Engineers' progress over the last month. Chris covered a lot of the construction already, but for number 1 and 2, the Diversion Inlet and Wild Rice, the Diversion Inlet is now at about 70% complete, and the Wild Rice is about 42% complete as they are completing the vertical construction in preparation for the arrival of the gates, like Chris said, this winter. Onto I-29 Rays, Chris covered that. They're working on the bypass and crossovers and making great progress in borrowing from the Red River Control Structure site. Number 4, Reach SE1, The required completion date is in 2023, but I think I reported last time that the contractor is likely to get done this year. So that could be a year in advance. Number 5, this is the big news today, the Red River structure design. Today we had a signing ceremony. The design is complete. After 2 hard years of design, the plans and specs are done, all signed off on. And we are ready to put that out on the street once, as you all know, we need some more federal money in order to award that contract. But we are ready, and hopefully we'll be awarding a contract in March for the Red River structure. And if you want to compare the Red River structure to the Wild Rice, Red River will be about 75 feet tall in comparison to the Wild Rice, which is about 59 feet tall. If you've been out there, you can kind of visualize how much bigger the red structure is going to be. On to number 6, SC1B, we're moving into 65% design. Number 7, reach SC2A. We're in the final review on that right now, and we'll be ready to award a contract on that in fiscal year 22 as well. Reach SC2B, we're at 35%, and that's the reach that leads into the Wild Rice River structure area. During 27, we have final plans and specs as of 30 July, and ready to award a contract for that as well. Drayton Dam, final plans and specs will be 1 October. We'll award a contract for that in fiscal year 22 as well. The Chief of Engineers visit, Joel showed some really awesome pictures of that day. It was a great visit. I'd like to share a few more on the backside of this update. Just a wonderful day, a great visit, and I want to thank you all who could join us. It was just a great day to have everybody there and to be able to walk around all of the progress. With that, are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Terry. Any questions? Hearing none, thank you. Moving on to number 8, public outreach update. Commissioner Olson.
We did not have a meeting this month. Doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of things going on in the background. A lot of integration with the Red River Alliance team and just integrating there and getting ready for the upcoming work that's going to be done. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to land management updates. Turning that over to you, Commissioner Shirley.
Thank you. We did not meet either this month. But of course, I know that they're out in the field working diligently on getting ahead of everyone. Perhaps if Eric is there or Joel has anything they'd like to add. Otherwise, you've got the update in your packet so you can see the individual parcels.
Okay, yep. And Mr. Dodds is here, so I will turn it over to Mr. Dodds.
Hi, good afternoon. Just a few notes that I would point out on the status report that we have up on the screen here. This is the monthly report. I think many of you are very familiar with this. If you follow along closely and track some of the numbers, I guess I'd just give you a few highlights. The green parcels, green is good. It means we've acquired those. We continue to have a number of those acquired each month. I think we were 5 or 6 increase from last month, and so the Cass County Joint Board and the MCC JPA are continuing to make progress in that regard. The reddish colored parcels are parcels where unfortunately we've had to file an eminent domain action. That number has actually gone down by 2 parcels, so we have had a few settlements that occurred prior to trial. So a good trend in that regard, and I'm hoping for a few more of those. I know the attorneys are actively working on scheduling trials throughout 2022, so lots of activity going on. Otherwise, quite a bit of activities. You can see all the colors on the south end of the project. Continue to be in heavy negotiations on just a few parcels for the red structure, and we're coordinating with Terry and her team on that. Also working on a few parcels for the Drain 27 project and Southern Embankment Reach 2A. So those are all around the Horace area where, as many of you probably know, driving around the Horace area is a pretty dynamic part of the world right now, lots of activity going on, and so those negotiations are challenged a bit because of the dynamic nature of development activity. Otherwise, the rest of the report drills into more details on specific areas, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you had any.
Thank you, Mr. Dodds. Any questions for Mr. Dodds? Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Eric. I'm just curious, for my sake, if you were to simply summarize the reason folks and we end up in eminent domain, what would it be?
Value.
That's it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think years ago there was, multiple reasons. One of them being people were completely opposed. They were trying to stop the project, for example. I think we've overcome that hurdle, and now it's primarily a value situation. And I know that every eminent domain action that we've had so far has gone through the county commission, Cass County Commission, and so they can certainly attest to some of the presentations we've given to them and some of the discussions the property owners have had. And that's not an easy situation, of course, but I guess if we're 2 or 3 times apart on value, I guess the joint board and Roger's group does a nice job of weighing all those options. We can't come to a resolution, and so that's where, unfortunately, eminent domain plays a role.
Mayor Mahoney.
Just curious on the cemeteries. Are you part of that, Eric, or is some other team got that?
Some of both. We have a cemetery subgroup that's been meeting to strategize on how to address the impacts to cemeteries. I know Joel and Chris have been out to the Clara Cemetery. I've been talking with the Hemney Cemetery just this week, and so we're setting up visits with all of them and trying to work towards a solution for each one of the impacted cemeteries.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dodds. Commissioner Shirley, did you have anything else?
I would just call upon Kevin to talk about the Minnesota side, and then Roger, if you wanted to add anything from the joint board.
Yeah, the MCC JPA meeting has been postponed, so we really have nothing to report. Anything new here? I think we're meeting next week.
September 2nd.
Yeah. So we'll probably have some information for the next board meeting.
Commissioner Olson?
Cass County Joint Board met this morning, and I have to back up what Eric said. It's on value, is why isn't settlement and why we end up going to eminent domain. It's unfortunate. And yes, the values close to Horace, close to West Fargo, those values are high. We understand that. But we can't stretch those values way out into the county. And we're seeing some of that. We're seeing those values that the landowners expect should be those high values. So we're having to deal with that, and it like Eric says, it's dynamic. It's growth is exploding out there, and it's also raising land values. So we struggle a little bit with our appraisers. We do question them. We trust their expertise, but then we also question them. And as appraisals get older, then there can be more dispute on what the value is because it is so dynamic. So that's what we're struggling with. To be fair, friendly, and flexible, really, is what we want to do. And sometimes it's very difficult, and we have to let the court decide. But certainly, all the landowners should realize that even though we go that route, it takes time, and there's still time to negotiate. And we'll negotiate up to the day of the hearing. So that's the message that I'd like to get out. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Shirley, did you have anything else?
Thank you. That is all.
Right, thank you. Moving on to finance update, turning it over to you, Mayor Dardis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Finance Committee did meet yesterday, had a good meeting. We had reports from Mr. Dodds on his lands dealings. We had a report from Mr. Shockley on regarding MOUs, as well as the agreements with the townships. In addition, we had approved contract actions, items 1 through 5, that are listed. Mr. Paulson can give you an overview, or I can. Items 1 and 2 is a consolidation of the Houston Moore group from 7 task orders to 2. It will continue to have the same financial overview, but they will be submitted in two areas rather than 7. And that's going to be it was time consuming before, and this will consolidate those and make it much easier. Item number 3 is AECOM, and that's the architectural or archaeology consultant that we have. That was a dollar amount of $534. Going back to items number 1 and 2, there is no net increase in value of the dollars to the HMG group. That is a net zero. It's just the way that it's going to be reported, and it should save administrative time. Again, item number 3 was $534,000 for the archaeologies. Item number 4, Dakota Carrier Network, is a $612,000 item, and that's for a utility relocation. And item number 5 is Industrial Builders, change order number 4, and that is with regard to graveling some township roads. They're not county roads, they're township roads. In visiting with Mr. Bakkegaard and Mr. Paulson, the township had respectfully requested that we're traveling a lot on there, and it required an overlay of gravel, and that is for $66,708. So if you have any questions, I stand for them, and if not, that's the end of the financial report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dardis. Joel, did you have any further updates on any of those contract actions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I think Mr. Dardis did a very good job. Just one small correction. It's actually 7 task orders apiece for each one of those HMGs, so a total of 14 task orders.
That's great.
Mayor Dardis had it spot on. It's a 0 net increase in total overall cost. We've unencumbered that 1.6 million in other task orders, and now we're bring them into these 2 task orders.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Any further or any questions of Joel on any of these contract actions? Okay, would we be able to, I believe we can approve all of these in one motion. So if I could get a motion to approve all of these contract actions.
Move to approve Bernie's excellent report.
I would like to second his excellent report.
And contract actions also.
Contract actions.
Madam Chairman, could I have one more minute? With regard to the discussion earlier with regard to the financial report, the item of question was not in any of the accounting, on any of the oversight or anything like that goes. It's a policy decision that the board has to give consideration to, a modification as to how an administrative fee has been administered. And at your direction, as the chairman's direction, the Finance Committee, along with our Diversion Authority Chairman, and along with Mr. Paulson, we'll be forming a committee of all the interested parties, and we'll come together and have a discussion about that and bring forward to the board, hopefully, an agreed resolution as to how to administer that in the future. Again, there was no question about the accounting or anything like that. Mr. Costin and his staff here at the City of Fargo do a marvelous job for the work that they do for us. It's nothing to do with that. It's a policy thing that the board must act on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dardis, and I full-heartedly agree that it is just a policy issue, and I will look for a motion after this current motion on the table. We'll look for a motion to approve the Fargo expense report minus the administrative fees until a policy decision has been made. But right now I have a motion and a second on the table to approve Mayor Dardis's excellent report and also contract actions.
Mayor Carlson.
Yep, just any further discussion or comments? Okay, thank you. Roll call, Don, please.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mr. Ebinger.
Aye.
Mr. Strand.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling.
Yes.
Mr. Steen.
Yes.
Mr. Olson.
Yes.
That is everyone.
Thank you. And the contract actions are approved. And now I'm looking for a motion for the Fargo expense report.
I think we
Finance.
already took care of that.
We already did?
Yes.
With the consent agenda?
Based on the previous motion, I think that was covered. That confusing motion that went on earlier.
Yes.
We'll replay the tape for you if you'd like.
Madam Chairman, it was just as confusing yesterday in the Finance Committee, so
Was.
there's no worries here.
John Shockley, are we okay?
I'm looking at our council because it was my understanding that we did need to take it up under the finance update.
Yeah, that was our understanding, is that you're taking it up under the finance committee report. So you have the total invoice for Fargo. So I believe the motion would be to approve it without the administrative fee, which is being set aside for a later date discussion.
The submittals from the city of Fargo was approximately $6 million, and then the administrative fee was a line item. So we would move to approve the submittal of the $6 million plus with the city of Fargo, less the administrative fee. I would move that, Madam Chairman.
Second.
Thank you. I have that motion and second.
Just to be
Please
clear, the amount of administrative fee we're disputing right now is 200,000. So it's not the 6 million, it's not 5 million, it's only 200,000. And in the past, it has been paid, so it's a little bit of an irritation, but thank you.
Yep. And just to reference, it's a policy decision, but we do have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion or comments?
Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Commissioner Strand?
Bear with me, is this vote enacting the new policy?
No,
This vote is absent a policy change.
absent a policy
And
change.
the next discussion on a policy change, will that affect this vote subsequently?
I don't know at this
No.
time if that would.
My understanding, based upon the motion, is that you are paying everything except the administrative fee and deferring the payment on the administrative fee until you have a policy discussion. So the $200,000 is just sitting out there waiting for the policy to get updated,
We'll move quickly.
Yep.
which is a policy discussion, just to be clear. It's not a legal issue, just a
Yes,
policy
and Mayor Dardis and myself will be putting together a committee to look at that policy. So I have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All right, could we get a roll call vote on this?
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney.
No.
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn.
No.
Mr. Ebinger.
Aye.
Mr. Strand.
No.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling.
Yes.
Mr. Steen.
Yes.
Mr. Olson.
Yes.
That is everyone. And that carried with 3 noes and the remainder were yea.
All right, thank you very much. Motion carries. All right, on to other business. Is there any other business that needs to come before the Diversion Authority?
I would just like to commend the person who writes the minutes for this meeting for approval.
I would second that. Good luck, Don. Any other business? Right. Then our next meeting is going to be on September 23rd, 2021, 3:30 PM. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we are adjourned.